Thank you very much. Well, before Dr. Hunter goes over our Thelon Basin Unconformity Uranium Project in Nunavut, I thought we would give a little update, corporate update on the company since we were here last in November. Thanks to David's recognition of the quality of our exploration project, the Red Cloud Investment Banking Group raised $10 million for us to advance our project, with 12 institutions raising the $10 million, and we're thankful for that. And that with that, it's a great responsibility for us to manage that money in this program effectively. So we're building capacity here at Forum. And here's a photograph of, we've been in the Thelon Basin Forum. This has been around for 20 years. We were exploring in the Thelon Basin in the first cycle of uranium. And this is an analyst tour that I took up there in 2009, sitting on the Kigavik discovery outcrop. Kigavik is Orano's 133 million pound deposit grading 0.57%. And this gentleman here was a mining analyst at National Bank at the time. Brian Christie probably needs no introduction. He's very well known here in Toronto. Geologist for 13 years, mining analyst for 17 years. He was most recently the Vice President of Investor Relations for Agnico Eagle Mines for the last 10 years. Actually, during the time of the development and production of the Meadowbank gold mine in Nunavut, which is very close to our project area. So he brings a lot of knowledge about doing business in Nunavut. So on the management front, the previous two speakers talked about ESG, how important that is, and it has to start at exploration. And we take that very seriously. Alison Rippon-Armstrong has just recently been hired as our Vice President of Nunavut Affairs, and she'll be working very closely in community relations, government relations, to make sure this project gains local support when I believe someday it's going to be in production. So we're here to find a mine. Alison's a tremendous person to have on the team with over 25 years experience, most recently working in Botswana for Lucara Diamonds. But she's got a lot of experience working in the Yukon Northwest Territories and Nunavut in her past, so we're really happy to have her on board. Now Rebecca, she needs no introduction. She's been spoken here a couple of times. Rebecca came to us as Vice President of Exploration about 2 years ago. She worked for 12 years at Cameco up in Nunavut on what was called the Aberdeen Turkavik uranium project. During that 12-year tenure at Cameco, she made 2 significant discoveries and discovered a number of other potentially large targets and deposit opportunities for the company. I staked, when Fukushima happened, I staked the ground because Cameco let it go during the downturn. So Forum owns it 100% free and clear of no royalties, nothing. And I snagged Rebecca to come back and work on this project as our Vice President of Exploration. So Rebecca.
All right, thanks, Rick, and I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be in the Thelon again. So yeah, I mean, our big value proposition here is we want to put the Thelon Basin on the map, and we do really believe that this is the next big high-grade district in the world. We've also renamed the project, so now we call it the Aberdeen Project instead of just kind of the Thelon or Nunavut Project. And so, again, we're looking for unconformity style deposits. they are the highest grade in the world, and in some cases very, very large tonnage. And they also can weather the storm. So one of the important things is that these types of deposits, because of their grade, they can really, when things get tougher, for the most part, they stay in production. There's only a few places in the world that have these deposits. You know, Athabasca, of course, MacArthur Basin in Australia, and then the Thelon, the new emerging district. This is our project location. Again, we're up, you know, north in the Nunavut. We're kind of in the northeast Thelon. Our project is about 100 kilometers west of Baker Lake, a small Inuit community. Meadowbank, Agnico Eagle's Meadowbank is to the north, so it's definitely already a mining district or becoming a bigger one. And then, of course, it's adjacent to Orano's Kigavik project. So 133 million pounds on the books at about 0.54% U3O8. Here's just going into the project. We have about 100,000 hectares of land. We have 2 deposits that we can build, Tadagak being the main one we're focusing on. We also have Kavik, which we'd like to progress as well, and those were found in the last cycle when I was working there. And we have all these other targets. So all the blue dots are other high priority targets. They're good geophysical anomalies. They're good structural anomalies. They have all the characteristics that could host something large. And so I'm going to focus here at Tadagak and give a bit of an update on what we're doing and what we plan on doing this summer. And so again, last summer we got back into the area. We drilled at the Tadagak main zone, a bit different of an angle because we learned more. We learned more through my thesis and kind of testing that a lot of the holes that were drilled in the past were actually drilled, you know, quite steep, and we're missing, either hitting the mineralization really well or missing it because they were drilling down these steep lenses. And so when we got in there last summer, we wanted to test the actual orientation of these mineralized bodies, and that's what we did. And so this is one of the intercepts, 2.25 over 11. Again, really good grades, you know, just demonstrating the big upside potential of this basin that is emerging. We also sent out a press release a couple days ago just to highlight that also within our mineralization, in the same, you know, intercept, we also have gold. So a lot of basement-hosted unconformity deposits have a bit of gold, and Tadagak is no exception. So 0.7 grams per ton over that 11 meters that also had 2% over 11 meters. And so just something, it's a bit of a halo. It's very much associated with the mineralization, and it also is associated kind of within the lower grade intervals. So giving a bit of an upside maybe in the future, if this ever goes into production, if we build this zone, that you have a bit of a gold kicker as well. This is the plan map of Tadagak. So again, a big gravity anomaly. So a lot of ways that we kind of hone into these deposits in this area of the world is gravity, because it really highlights the strong clay alteration that's above these deposits. And this last summer, we drilled basically only about 250 meters of this large gravity anomaly. And the other holes that are in this anomaly are altered as well. So we definitely know this system is big. So it's 1.5 kilometers long and about 0.7 kilometers wide. And you have multiple fault zones within this that could host additional uranium mineralization. So this is just a cross section. Again, the basic geology. It's like overall, it's a granite body with an older metasedimentary raft within it, potentially more rafts at depth. And you got these fault zones that are cutting through it, and then at that fault kind of semi-politic interface, you get the precipitation of these high-grade steep lenses. And that's what we drilled this summer. We have the 2.25 over 11, really just intersecting 2 of those high-grade lenses. The overall body is about 50 meters wide so far, but we need to kind of step to the northwest and southeast to see if it's actually wider than that, and also test at depth. So all of this stuff is very shallow. The mineralization is all under about 200 meters depth at Tadagak to date. And so we really haven't tested below about 250 meters. So again, there's more upside as well at depth. And it has a similar structural style as other Athabasca-style basement-hosted deposits like NextGen's Arrow, as well as Cameco's Eagle Point. So I have a video here. Hopefully, I don't know how to play it though. There. So this is just to hone in to give it a bit more visual. So honing into Tadagac here. Zooming in, all the drill holes to date. You got the main zone, you got the west zone. This is the big gravity anomaly. Enormous, really prospective. And so then we'll just move into the subsurface. And essentially the rest of the rock is granite, and then you get these semi-politic sort of rafts that are entrained within the granite body. And that's where the mineralization is, and then you have these steep faults, east-northeast faults cutting through there. And so here's the mineralization just modeled again, steep lensoid ore body, potential future ore body. That's the 0.1 to 0.5, and then if you zoom into the higher grades, 0.5 to 1% U3O8. A lot of the west zone, we don't have enough drilling resolution in there, but again, it should be about a similar size to the Tadagac main zone. So again, just the 1 to 2% U3O8, and then it'll show the highest grade zone so far. Again, definitely more room to step out along strike, and then at depth, we really don't have any information on that. If these faults extend and there's more mineralization at depth. We also did some more geophysics this summer, and so I've always been very intrigued by this passive seismic, and so I really wanted to do it on the Thelon to help image these gravity anomalies and resolve and be able to target better within this area. So this is the kind of the nodes, so it's basically like seismic, but you leave these nodes over about a month. You just kind of put them down, and then you pick them up and basically analyze the data. And it's just measuring the natural vibration of the earth, sometimes even beach waves and stuff like that. We did it at Tadagac, and we did it at Bjorn and Ned, two other high priority targets along the Thelon fault. And so this is just some of the preliminary data. So this is looking to the northwest, so it's kind of a longitudinal section. It's measuring velocity. And so what we've noticed is that at that abrupt kind of velocity interface, we're getting both the sedimentary bodies as well as the mineralization. And so what's exciting about that is now we actually have kind of a Z, or an actual target depth, to kind of look as we move to the east-northeast along that gravity anomaly. So we have several targets. What's also interesting is that the depth of those interfaces isn't any deeper, so it's still very shallow. So potentially the Tadagac deposit, as we expand it, is going to continue to be fairly shallow, which improves the economics and the discoverability of this zone. And then if you look, this is looking northeast, so this is kind of looking along the mineralization. Again, the two things that come out of this survey is that it's helping us find that interface between where the alteration is and the mineralization, but it's also showing the fault zones. And so one of the things in the Thelon Basin is we don't have graphite. And so we can't use EM surveys to hone into the fault zones. They're actually fairly transparent. And so this survey, the real power, I think, of this survey, and we'll test it, of course, in the summer, is that we can actually see the faults. And so then we actually know where along these anomalies to chase. And so I'm very excited, and I hope that I can come back in the fall and show everyone how well this worked. And so here's our drill plan. Essentially, we got that 10 million, which I'm really happy about, so I can get a lot of work done. We're going to spend about 75% of that at Tadagac and expand that resource. We're going to do hopefully about 10,000 meters at least, about 8,000 of which at Tadagac. And then I'm going to step out a bit to some of these other targets and test them as well, because I really feel that if we're going to find the big one, it's going to be along the Thelon fault. So another subparallel fault similar to Tadagac, but you still have the Thelon basin. And so I want to test Ned and Bjorn. I'll be getting the A&T work back on that as well. And so hopefully that'll also improve our targeting. And we have Kavik, there's mineralization there, and we have a few other high priority targets that I'd like to get a few holes in, and hopefully have some good news as well on that in the fall. Again, I guess the biggest upside of this project is we're not expanding just one deposit. It's a camp of deposits. So Kavik is already mineralized. Again, probably weren't drilling it at the optimal angle back in the last cycle based on what we know now. But again, 2.25 over 0.3, you actually have a lot more wider intervals. The mineralization there is actually at surface all the way to 400 meters. And so in some ways, it's even more similar to Arrow than Tadagac. We also have the Ira grid, which has sandstone and very clay-altered and uranium-elevated sandstone. And so it's the first place in the Thelon Basin that actually demonstrates true unconformity contact potential. And so that's another area we're going to do A&T, and another area that I want to focus on. This is just kind of our timeline as we go forward. And so 2024, essentially we're in the logistics and preparation mode right now in Q1. We are going to start hauling overland all our second drill, as well as our camp, as well as supplies and fuel. In the next few weeks, we're going to start that process. We're going to build our camp. So we got a lot going on this year. It's pretty ambitious. Build our camp in about May. And the drilling will start in June. So June to October will be our drilling program. We'll do a bit more geophysics, more ant work, like I said, and go from there. So you can expect maybe some results in July, August. So that's kind of the biggest catalyst when we'll start hopefully having some really good drill results. And so our main goal, and I mean, Rick alluded to this, but what we're interested in is building the next high-grade uranium district. And so this is just the Lassonde curve, of course. We're dirt cheap right now, 12 cents, maybe 13. We have 2 discoveries already that we can just build, so we can just move along with that. Plus we have all these other targets, and the real goal here is to bring this district, up to the Athabasca level. And essentially, right now for us, it's equivalent to having the Athabasca Basin to ourselves in the 1970s with all that knowledge that they didn't have back then. So I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.